Nearly $144,000 a year, over $115,000. How about almost $129K? You probably like to make money like that, but you might be surprised to learn these are the annual incomes of some public housing tenants right here in Louisiana.
It's a clear abuse of taxpayer funds.
There was State Representative Cameron Henry's reaction when we showed him the findings of our Fox 8 investigation. We obtained public records from a federal audit into the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's public housing program. It ranked Louisiana 7th in the country for allowing people to live in public housing who earn more than HUD's 2014 eligibility income limits. We uncovered taxpayers are helping pay rent for hundreds of those tenants, from New Orleans to the West Bank to down the bayou. Take a look at the income of some of the highest earning tenants. More than $143,000 in St. Charles Parish, nearly $116,000 in Berwick, close to $100K in Lafourche, and tenants in New Orleans made anywhere from $77,000 to over $86,000 a year.
What we seem to have now is a group of individuals who found a way to abuse the system and are preventing others who truly need it from being able to have a decent house.
We reached out to every housing authority in our viewing area who made the list. The director of the Jefferson Parish Housing Authority agreed to talk to us on camera. That federal audit found a dozen over-income tenants were living in public housing there, some making as much as $59,000 and $64,000 a year.
Wouldn't you say that that is a waste of taxpayer money when the taxpayers are funding this rent?
You know, I've heard that argument. I think it's not so much the issue of it being a waste of taxpayers' money. I think it's more of an issue of fairness to the people who are on the waiting list who want to get an apartment.
And thousands of low-income families are on waiting lists across the state in need of affordable housing. After the federal audit was released in July, HUD sent this letter to housing authorities across the country. It says the audit, quote, identified several cases where families had incomes that were excessively above the income threshold. And of the housing authorities sampled, none were using their discretion to evict those over-income families. The letter goes on to encourage housing authorities to adopt local policies to remove those extremely over-income tenants to ensure public housing is available for the nation's most vulnerable families.
We haven't made any policy decisions with respect to that. So far, what we have done is simply what I talked about. Letting them know what the opportunities are for home ownership, the assistance that is available for them to get into home ownership.
And Patterson tells us of the dozen over-income tenants we found living in the Jefferson Parish public housing system, 6 have since moved out. As for why the others are still there, he says that can be complicated. Some may have bad credit and can't get a loan to buy a house. Others may like the safety net public housing provides, meaning if they lose their job, their rent will be adjusted downward. And others may not be able to afford housing in the private market on their own because they rely on income from family members, like working adult children who live with them.
What would you say to those who say these tenants are cheating the system?
They're actually not. They're abiding by all the rules that the system established for them. So no, they're not cheating the system.
And our investigation uncovered that system continues to allow over-income tenants to live in government housing. We asked all the housing authorities in our viewing area for a current income list from their tenants. The Housing Authority of New Orleans, or HANO, denied our request, saying it is, quote, so burdensome as to interfere with the operation of HANO's constitutional and legal duties. Others complied, and we found some tenants making big money are still cashing in on your tax dollars for their rent. In Berwick, there's a family of 3 living in a 2-bedroom unit. Their annual income right now, nearly $151,000. Last year, they were pulling in nearly $129,000. In Jefferson Parish, of those 6 over-income families still living in public housing, 1 is making nearly $66,000 a year. Another more than $72,000.
And a lot of viewers who see this will say, that's more than they may make. And so they may be asking, with someone with that kind of income, shouldn't they be renting or buying in the private market?
Well, I think that with that kind of income, especially if it's earned income, they should be renting in the private market or or actually purchasing a home in the private market.
And after seeing our investigation, Representative Henry says the system needs to change.
You feel bad for the families that are on that list who are making the bare minimum, doing exactly what they're supposed to do to try to get into one of these housings, and we know they're not going to stay there forever. Yet we let a few, unfortunately it's more than a few, you let several hundred abuse that, and the authorities that are supposed to be monitoring this seem to be willing just to overlook it for whatever reason.
When that federal audit was released in July, it estimated more than $104 million in taxpayer money will be used over the next year to pay government housing rent for over-income families that otherwise could have been used to house low-income families. After seeing what we uncovered in our investigation, State Representative Cameron Henry says he plans to look into what can be done at the state level to keep those tenants from living in public housing. And this afternoon, Hanno sent us this statement saying, quote, HUD has issued updated guidance, which will be vetted through our next agency planning process. Kimberly Kurth, Fox 8 News.